Okay, one of the things that students do in every trig class is memorize the unit circle. So before we get started looking at the unit circle, there's some things that I want to point out. First of all, the unit circle is made up of reference angles. And they're repeated, they're only special reference angles. We have 30 degree, 45 degree, 60 degree, and then at the axes, you've got 90 degree angles and 180 degree angles, right? All right, so in each quadrant, there's a 30 degree angle, right? Remember, a reference angle, so here would be a 30 degree, here would be a 30 degree, here would be a 30 degree, there would be a 30 degree reference angle. In each quadrant, there's a reference angle. So in quadrant 1, right here, I've highlighted the quadrants. Quadrant 1, quadrant 2, quadrant 3, quadrant 4. 30 degrees. Well, when you convert degrees to radians, we've got pi 6. Well, right here is 150 degrees. Well, if you're counting by 30s, let's see how many that is. 30, 60, 90. So that's 1, 2, 3. 120, that's 4. 150, right here, we counted 5 of those. So that's going to be 5 pi 6. And then right here at pi, that would be 6 pi 6. So the one right next to 6 pi 6, this would be 7 pi 6. And then if all the way around the circle is 12 pi 6, because 12 divided by 6 is 2 pi, then the one right before that must be 11 pi 6. That looks a little bit strange. I'll go ahead and rewrite that. 11 pi 6. You're going to do the same thing with pi fourths. So 45 degrees, right? So right here, this is 45 degrees or pi fourths. Well, so there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There's 8 of those. If you go all the way around the circle, 8 pi fourths is the same as 2 pi. So we just have to count. So 1, 2, oh, there's another one. So that's 3 pi fourths, 4, 5. And remember, we're talking about these reference angles right here. So 5 pi fourths, this would be 6 pi fourths, 7 pi fourths. I just really want you all to have the visual of what's happening here. You can always convert using the ratio, but if you understand what's happening, that will be useful when you have to memorize the unit circle. You don't really have to do so much memorizing. And then pi thirds is 60 degrees, right? So let me get rid of all this stuff if I can. All right, so pi 60, we're going to be up here, right? So that's a 60 degrees. Well, that's the same thing as pi thirds. So there's going to be 1 here. There's going to be 1 here. There's going to be 1 here. Right? So if we're talking about pi thirds, 6 pi thirds is the same thing as 2 pi's, right? So this is 1 pi thirds. Right here would be 2 pi thirds. Well, this would be 3 pi thirds, same as pi. So that down here, if this is 3 pi thirds, this is going to be 4 pi thirds, which means this is going to be 5 pi thirds, which makes sense because then this would be 6 pi thirds. So the reference angles then The 120 would be 2 pi thirds. 180 is 3 pi thirds, so this would be 4 pi thirds. 5 pi thirds. And as long as you can remember pi thirds and then know how to count, you should be okay. And then look at what in each triangle, here is the reference angle that it draws. So for the pi 6, this opposite side, or the height, meaning the y value, is 1/2. And the adjacent side, this length, is √3/2. And then for the 45-degree angle, look at both of those are the same, √2/2, √2/2, and then 30 and 60, these two are reversed. So this, we just reverse this, and this are just reversals. And if you can remember those things, so look at what's going to happen. So let's talk about the pi 6 right here. If right here, that right there is 1/2 and then √3/2, then in this quadrant, it's still going to be the 1/2 and √3/2, but the x value is negative. And down here, it's still going to be 1/2 and √3/2, but in this quadrant, they're both negative. And then over here, it's still going to be 1/2 and √3/2, but the 1/2 is positive, this is negative. So all you're really having to do is to remember pi 6, pi 4, pi thirds. Remember these coordinate points, and the rest of it, just by looking at the unit circle and understanding, here we have positive, positive, here we have negative, positive, down here we have negative, negative, over here we have positive, negative. You really can derive the unit circle. And then if this helps, for the pi 6, you have to get 12 of those before it's 12 pi over 6, which is 2 pi. So you can count if you need to all the way around the circle. For pi 4ths, there are 8 of those around the unit circle. 8 pi 4ths. And remember, we counted 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Because in 90 degrees, in each quadrant, there's 90 degrees. Well, that's 2, 45. So first quadrant, second quadrant, third quadrant, fourth quadrant. And then for pi thirds, the 60-degree angles, you've got 60, 120. At 180, that just is the same as pi, so that's not going to be a reference angle. Then you've got 4 pi thirds, which is 240, and then 5 pi thirds, which is 300, and then 6, which we're back to 360 or 2 pi. All right, so I hope that is a little bit helpful. And then when you actually do the unit circle, you just repeat all of this stuff. You're going to have to remember that this is 0, 1. So that makes, oops, sorry, 1, 0. Again, imagine that I would reverse something. And then -1, 0. And then up here, this is 0, 1. This is 0, -1. But all of this stuff, it's just this information in the first quadrant, but you have to pay attention to the signs. Or, so for this reference angle, pi 6, we're counting by 30, so 30, 60, 90. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pi 6. So that's all there is to this, but it takes a little bit of practice.